Good morning, Warriors. Back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2 and the 1% Club. Hope you guys are doing well on your journey. Hope everything is moving along and you guys are not losing any kind of faith or hope in what's happening, and your faith is growing by the minute, which is wonderful. Thank you so much for everybody who is kind of putting in comments and subscriptions. I think we're almost at 550, so that's phenomenal. I just feel very blessed and helped that I'm doing something to kind of help people. I've always wanted to kind of start giving back and doing stuff, so I'm glad. Curvy, thank you so much, my friend, for your donation. And I think I probably wrote it the wrong way. I used to put the link all the time because it's not honestly a higher priority. I mean, yes, please donate if you feel like that's what you're moving to and your heart moves to. That's great. But I don't always put it down there, and so I just kind of want to get these out so that people can get the information and maybe it helps somebody. But certainly I think I spelled PayPal wrong. I have to go back and look at it, and I'm going to go ahead and put the link, and I'll try to start putting the links for donations if you want to do that. So once again, I've had Alvin and Curvy, other people have donated. I really appreciate that. I know times are rough, so I'm not really kind of asking for that, but I also realize that if you feel like the stuff that I'm doing is helping, and I do eventually, when things slow down a little bit, I eventually will get a better way to tape this and get a laptop and all that kind of stuff. I just haven't had really a chance to do that. Things have been going kind of crazy and hectic over the last couple of years, especially with, as we know, with COVID and all the kind of stuff like that. So it's been a crazy time, but we will get organized, and certainly any kind of donation I feel very grateful for. So thank you so much, Curvy. You're the man, and I appreciate that a great deal. So because of that, Curvy Shrine, I think it's Shrine, last name Shrine, and it's so I appreciate that a great deal. Shout out to you, my friend. I'm actually in dedication to you because you were very kind to donate. I'm going to actually go ahead and kind of use one of your questions for the topic of this video. So Curvy is asking us, the question is, can you have physical intimacy on semen retention? It is a real good question, right? And I'm also tomorrow I'll focus on part 2 of this a little bit, because I believe that Nazir, our viewer that I did the video on yesterday, the question he had about anxiety. He had another good question about whether or not a person can be married on monk mode. How does that work? And it's also a good question. I've been married over almost 30 years now. And so it is a good question when you have a wife or you have someone, and obviously you're going to have intimacy with that person. So how does that work, or how do you interpret that in the coax of the Bible and all this kind of stuff that they're talking about here? It's a very valid question and something I dealt with for a long time. And so let me kind of give you my impressions, and I'm not going to say that I'm right or wrong. I'm just going to kind of give you my impressions of this whole thing as we deal with this. All right, so physical intimacy, and like I said, I'll keep the monk mode one till tomorrow for Nazir. But let's focus on Curvy's question about physical intimacy. Physical intimacy is obviously it's different than emotional intimacy. Emotionally, you're very tied to somebody, and in many ways, the emotional intimacy kind of starts the process of the physical. If you're tied with someone and you have those type of feelings for someone, physically or emotionally, you're going to become intimate with that person immediately. That's why sometimes you can actually run into a person and it feels like you've known them for years, because you have that connection right away. And so I think God knows that with people, and I think that He realizes that it's important to be able to have relationships between males and females. And I think he realizes that it's important for this population to grow and to procreate. And so you need to have that as well. Now, the issue that I think the Bible talks about a lot is the fact that, sometimes people they get away from God, and they go ahead and it becomes a very, abusive, this kind of immoral, deviant type behaviors that people go to because they're focusing so much on the sex, they're not really focusing on the relationship itself with the person. And so after a while, what ends up people doing is when they go ahead and use like one night stands or high body counts and things like that, that perception of the person is that this person is just like an object. And it doesn't matter if it's male or female here we're talking about. I know a lot of females who look at life the same way. And this becomes a very depressing and psychological problems that are going to come because you're looking at people as objects. It's almost like an animal you would have. Is if you look at the animal as an object, you don't put much value in that animal. You're not going to treat the animal well. But if you look at the animal as something as a living being, the same thing as a human being, then all of a sudden you look at things differently. And so I think the Bible talks about the facts that people start looking at people as idols, as figures, as objects, and not really as people. And so that's why I think the problem that the Bible talks about in the Sodom and Gomorrah and the Roman Empire, well, even the Roman Empire, but the Babylon Empire, which is very similar to the Roman Empire, all those type of things he talks about because the behaviors got out of hand. And obviously people lost energy all over the place, as you can just probably imagine in those type of times. And so those people became weak, and that's when different countries or places got taken over. And you see some of the same kind of stuff in the United States, and this is why people are very concerned about other countries coming in and taking over the United States, because of the weakness, especially of the men, because they're losing their energy and they're not really strong. And this is what happened with the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire really kind of folded from within first, before Attila and all the hordes and all the Huns and everybody else came taking in. It came to destruction because it internally kind of lost all its morality, and people could not stop themselves and those type of things. And the same thing happened in Babylon as well, and the same thing obviously happened with Sodom and Gomorrah. All these things, and God destroyed them within an hour. So the thing is that when you look at this, God is only going to take so much and say, okay, these behaviors you're going to get the fruits of these behaviors. And this is why you should not be going around sleeping with a bunch of people all the time. And so as a result of that, you're going to end up being stronger as a person, being more selective, and not somebody you're just going to go ahead and sleep with because they look attractive. Guys, a lot of times when a person looks attractive, you never know who the person really is, and you never get to know the person until after the fact. And after the fact, the person could be nothing like you, and now you've kind of wasted a lot of your intimacy with that. I mean, it's a valuable tool. Intimacy is a valuable tool along with your energy, physically and emotionally. You can be emotionally drained just like you can do physically drained. So we get back to Curvy's question about this. And the reason why Moses talked about this in the New Testament was that he realized people can't control themselves. This has been going on for thousands of years, my friends. If you think it's just something that's happening now, I would urge you to go back and read Bible texts and go back and look at what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah and the Babylon era and all the way, Roman Empire, Incas, even the English Tudors and everything. You could see people in human nature who've lost God, who do not control themselves. They believe they are the God down deep, and they can do anything they want to do. So the thing is that they did not learn how to sacrifice and self-discipline. So Moses said, you need to marry if you can't control yourself, because at least you have one person you're doing this with than others. The key, my friend, to this whole thing is really energy. Now, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit tomorrow when it comes to Nazir's question as well, because they are kind of interrelated. Physical intimacy you can have. Now, and I say this, guys, and I realize that, Vigor is kind of going off the deep end on this one. But I'm not really going off the deep end. All I'm saying is that as you build up more days, as you become stronger, there's no reason why you can't have some physical intimacy. Now, can you control yourself to not release energy during that period of time? That's going to be the tough question. Now, if you can, well, then you're with your partner, you kept your energy, and that is a tough thing. Now, it's a funny thing to me because in all these years, I was able to do that on many, many occasions, but our society tells us that's wrong. If you're not going to release energy when you're having intercourse, oh, that's a bad thing. You got to be something wrong with you, right? But in essence, my friends, you have that superior superpower within you, and you should not be giving it up. Does not mean you still can't have, pleasure with your wife or person, and be able to be happy with that person and enjoy physical touch and things like that. There's no reason for that. But once again, it's a matter of control of yourself. And I've seen people who just have amazing types of controls when it comes to this. And they can have physical activity and still not have a problem with it, because they're the one making the choice of whether or not to release or not. And this is the key that I think you get to. It is so easy when you're releasing all the time, they're just going to release. Now, I will say this, however, that people who end up doing this with magazines and books and things like that, they don't always be able to do that with other people, because it's a different mentality they have, seeing the actual person compared to the picture. But still, people will kind of do that and release, and all of a sudden they're not as strong, and they're not getting as much out of the activity and the situation they could. But remember, guys, you're still dealing with one person. You should be. And this is my viewpoint. You should be dealing with one person. And if you're dealing with one person, that's a relationship you have with that person. And because you have that relationship with that person, you're going to have a friendship, a relationship. It is not going to be the end of the world as you guys share physical intimacy with each other. And I think as you do that, you become a lot more appreciative of the person. Remember, this is a person. Now, I say that again because I go back to the other thing I was saying, is that lots of people, when they get into this realm of, releasing energy, things like that, they start looking at people as objects and not really people, okay? And when you look at people as people, now you're going to have some empathy, understanding. You're not going to try to just kind of use them for a sexual activity and that'd be it, okay? But you're going to use them for something stronger than that. All right, my friends. Well, enough for today. We're going to kind of talk about it a little bit later, tomorrow again. Until next time, guys, battle on.